Tonight, unprecedented invitation. President Trump in Asia saying just hours from now that he is willing to meet Kim Jong-un at the DMZ.
We won't call it a summit, we'll call it a handshake.
Will the North Korean dictator accept, and will President Trump step inside one of the most secretive countries on earth? Disturbing new details about the man arrested for the murder of a missing Utah student.
I can't believe he'd do that to her.
The growing tributes to that young woman and the suspect's apparent plans to build a secret room. A warning to parents about petting zoos and the suspected connection to a bacterial infection that's killed a toddler. Breaking tonight, found alive, an elderly hiker missing for a week in a California forest without any food has been rescued. And who needs cricket? Baseball takes Britain by storm. America's national pastime gets a royal welcome across the pond.
This is NBC Nightly News with Jose Diaz-Balart.
Good evening, I'm Peter Alexander. Jose has this Saturday night off. Tonight, President Trump is just hours away from what could be a historic photo op. The president on Twitter inviting North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un to meet him at the highly secured demilitarized zone, what marks an impulsive diplomatic gamble. If it happens, the face-to-face visit would punctuate a series of meetings where the president, during an international summit, lavished praise on allies and autocrats, including Russian President Vladimir Putin and Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Critics say the president is sacrificing American values to appease global strongmen. We have two reports tonight, and we begin with our chief foreign correspondent, Richard Engel, in Seoul. Richard?
Peter, President Trump is scheduled to go to the DMZ anyway. It was always part of his trip to this country. The question everyone here is asking, will the North Korean leader join him there?
President Trump arrived in South Korea for what could be the signature moment of his Asia tour, tweeting out a last-minute invitation to North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un to meet him at the border where North and South Korea meet to say hi.
We won't call it a summit, we'll call it a handshake if it does happen. I don't know that it will, but it could happen. He follows my Twitter. And it's very hard. Yeah, I guess so, because we got a call very quickly.
A response did come quickly. In a statement, North Korea calling the invitation a very interesting suggestion for further deepening the personal relations between the two leaders.
They've contacted us and they'd like to see if they could do so. And we're not talking about for, extended, just a quick hello.
Covered in barbed wire, guard towers, and an estimated 1 million landmines, the DMZ straddles both sides of the North and South Korean border. The DMZ can be tense. In late 2017, a North Korean soldier sprinted from the northern side to the south to defect. North Korean guards shot him, but he made it across and survived. Would the president step across into North Korea to see Kim Jong-un?
Sure, I would. I'd feel very comfortable doing that. I would have no problem.
It would be the third face-to-face between President Trump and Kim Jong-un, the last meeting ending abruptly. President Trump saying North Korea wasn't making enough concessions on its nuclear weapons program for sanctions relief. This time, no agenda has been set, just to catch up.
And Richard Engel is with us from Seoul right now. Richard, what is the risk-reward for President Trump from this last-minute high-stakes invitation?
So for President Trump, the risk is effectively embarrassment, that Kim Jong-un doesn't show up, that President Trump is stood up, that the North Korean uses this for propaganda, telling his own people that he's more important than President Trump and that he doesn't need to respond to his beck and call. The reward is that he potentially restarts diplomacy after that last failed summit and gets a great photo op. Peter?
Richard Engel in Seoul for us tonight. Richard, thank you. President Trump's trip to that global summit in Japan offered a chance to reunite with world leaders, both friends and foes. The president vowing to hold off slapping additional tariffs on China, at least for now, but also raising eyebrows by his warm interactions with several other controversial figures. NBC's Hans Nichols is also in Seoul and has our report.
President Trump departed from Japan with a temporary ceasefire in the trade war with China.
At least the time being, we're not going to be lifting tariffs.
In the handshake agreement with President Xi Jinping, Mr. Trump agreed not to slap 25% tariffs on some $300 billion of Chinese imports. He will also allow U.S. firms to sell to the Chinese tech giant Huawei.
We're going to work with China on where we left off.
In return, China has agreed, according to Trump, to buy American agricultural products. The president also met with Russia's Vladimir Putin and Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. During the group photo op, Mr. Trump seen playfully gesturing to the man that the president's own CIA has concluded likely ordered the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi.
I get along with a lot of people, but I get along with President Putin.
And on Russia, the president was pressed on this moment, where he smiled when asked if he would tell Putin not to meddle again.
You have to take a look at the words. I did say it. We've talked about it before. You know he denies it totally, by the way. How many times can you get somebody to deny something?
And he offered an opinion on the Democrats' debate. Senator Kamala Harris sparred with former Vice President Joe Biden about his record on race. But Mr. Trump tried to downplay her performance.
I think she was given too much credit for what she did. Wasn't that outstanding? He didn't respond great. I wouldn't say it was this was not Winston Churchill we're dealing with.
President Trump also responded to former President Jimmy Carter, who questioned Trump's legitimacy on Friday. Trump calling Carter the forgotten president, adding, "He's a nice man. He was a terrible president." Peter?
Hans, thank you very much. Some new and disturbing details are emerging tonight in the case of that missing Utah student who vanished last week. A former member of the Utah National Guard has now been arrested for her murder, and a local contractor says the suspect asked him to build a secret room in his basement. NBC's Kathy Park has the very latest.
Tonight, a growing tribute to 23-year-old University of Utah student Mackenzie Lewick, as new details emerge about the man suspected of her murder, Ayoola Ajayi, after this dramatic SWAT team arrest on Friday. Contractor Brian Wolf says Ajayi reached out to him in April with an unusual request, creating a secret room in his basement.
He asked me to build a weird room, and I told him no.
Wolf says he didn't think much more about it until he saw the house on the news.
My heart just dropped. I'm like, no way.
Investigators spent hours digging for clues at the suspect's Salt Lake City home this week. The search, police say, unearthed charred human tissue.
You can't even believe this went on across the street.
Police saying they intend to charge Ajayi with aggravated murder, kidnapping, and desecration of a body. Authorities have investigated him before. The North Park Police Department says it received a rape complaint against him in 2014, but the female victim did not wish to pursue charges. NBC News has not been able to locate an attorney for Ajayi. Lewick was last seen alive June 17th. Authorities say phone records show Ajayi was her last phone contact.
This is devastating. I can't believe he'd do that to her.
A tragic ending for a student, one sorority sister remembered as a ball of light. Kathy Park, NBC News.
Tonight, a missing hiker has been found alive in a California forest. The 73-year-old man disappeared after getting separated from his group a week ago, and late today he was airlifted to safety. NBC's Morgan Chesky has the breaking details on his incredible rescue.
It's the photo capturing a rescue deep in the California wilderness. A helicopter crew treating Eugene Joe after hoisting him to safety. The 73-year-old missing since last week after losing contact with his group on a hike in the Angeles forest, forcing himself to find a way to survive.
He went into a canyon that, is named Devil's Canyon, and it's named that way for a reason. There is so much rock, tree fall, brush. It's just rough conditions.
His disappearance sparked a massive search all week long. With no sign of him, more than 70 people combed the area near Mount Waterman where he was last seen. The big breakthrough finally came this afternoon. Crews found Joe, hungry but alive. He hadn't eaten in at least 5 days and stayed hydrated by drinking the water from a nearby creek. Mild temperatures also helped keep heat exhaustion from setting in.
He was actually in remarkable condition considering he's been without any provisions for a week.
Rescue crews took Joe to a local hospital out of precaution. The 73-year-old who survived in the wild alone is now expected to make a full recovery. A best-case scenario after friends feared the worst. Morgan Chesky, NBC News.
An emergency landing halted flights at one of this country's busiest airports this morning. It happened at Newark Liberty International Airport in New Jersey. A United Airlines flight left nearby LaGuardia Airport, headed for Houston when it had brake issues and had to land, blowing 2 tires. Passengers evacuated the plane, but no injuries were reported. Arrivals and departures were halted for about an hour. A trip to a San Diego County fair has turned tragic. Several children and a teenager have been sickened after visiting that fair's petting zoo. One boy died, and authorities there say E. coli bacteria is to blame. NBC's Molly Hunter tonight has the latest on how parents can protect their children from getting sick.
Summer fun turned tragic. A toddler has died and 3 other children fell sick after contracting E. coli infections at the San Diego County Fair.
We take this very, very seriously. Safety and security is our #1 priority.
The source of the E. coli bacteria is under investigation, but all 4 children visited the petting zoo, which is now closed.
That's really scary. I wouldn't want him to be going in there petting the animals.
The CDC says some 265,000 harmful E. coli infections, known as STEC, occur each year, and PETA has documented hundreds of cases since 2010 specifically related to petting zoos.
If you're going to a petting zoo or a zoo where there are animals, first thing is leave the toys, leave the strollers, leave the pacifiers, leave all of that stuff outside the area where the animals are.
The CDC says the best way to protect yourself, wash your hands and make sure children are supervised, avoid feeding animals, and don't play on the ground.
You don't necessarily have to touch an animal to become infected with this bacteria. It can actually live on other objects in a space where animals live and roam.
Symptoms can include stomach cramps, diarrhea, and vomiting and last up to a week. And while most people will recover from an E. coli infection, a small minority develop complications, and those could be fatal. Molly Hunter, NBC News.
Tonight, family, friends, and New York City's finest are remembering a man that they call a hero. After 9/11, Luis Alvarez spent months at Ground Zero searching for survivors and for remains. And in the years since, he fought for justice for all those first responders. Alvarez died this morning, just 53 years old, but he leaves a legacy of courage. Harry Smith has his story.
Luis Alvarez was a New York City cop, a detective who worked narcotics and then years on the bomb squad, a family man. After 9/11, Alvarez combed through the damaged buildings and across rooftops looking for human remains. Then he worked on the pile, that human excavation chain of first responders searching for the shreds of the people who died. We know that a lot of cops and firemen and EMTs who worked in that pile had trouble breathing. The EPA said the air was fine, so they kept on working.
You all said you would never forget. Well, I'm here to make sure that you don't.
With some of his last breaths, he addressed members of Congress.
You made me come down here the day before my 69th round of chemo. And I'm going to make sure that you never forget to take care of the 9/11 responders.
Lou didn't have that 69th round of chemo. He went home and went into hospice after 3 years of fighting 9/11-related cancer.
If I can help just one more first responder, then it makes it all worthwhile for me. Really, you know, it sounds like a cliche, but it's the truth.
Lou Alvarez stepped up, just like he did after 9/11. Harry Smith, NBC News, New York.
Showing courage even in his last days. Still ahead here tonight, a consumer alert about those keyless car remotes, an unexpected and sometimes deadly hidden danger.
And Doug.
Exactly. Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance, so you only pay for what you need.
Nice. But what's up with your partner?
Oh, we just spend all day telling everyone how we customize car insurance because no two people are alike, so. Limu gets a little confused when he sees another bird that looks exactly like him. Yeah. He'll figure it out. Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
I knew my son could be at risk of certain cancers later in life from an infection, human papillomavirus. I knew how widespread HPV is, and while HPV clears for most, that might not be the case for him. I knew his risk increases as he gets older. I knew a vaccine could help protect him at age 11 or 12 before he could be exposed. I knew, so I talked to my child's doctor.
Now that you know that HPV can lead to certain cancers, don't wait. Talk to your child's doctor today.
With